I thought I didn't matter. Until she said my name out loud for everyone to hear. There was a time when I believed people only noticed you when you were successful. Before that, you were just background noise, a moving shadow refilling coffee, answering phones, keeping systems alive without anyone ever asking who you were. I learned that lesson during the hardest winter of my life. I had just moved to the city after a divorce that left me emotionally hollow and financially broken. My ex-husband kept the house. The joint savings disappeared into legal fees and promises that never meant anything. I rented a narrow studio apartment above a laundromat that never slept. The machines rattled through the walls at night like distant thunder, and the air always smelled like detergent and wet fabric. I worked nights at a hospital call center, the invisible front line. People called when they were scared, when they were grieving, when they were angry at a system they didn't understand. I listened to voices crack at 3 a.m., heard last goodbyes through static, and typed notes that became part of someone else's medical history. No one there knew my story. Most didn't even know my name, except one person, Mr. Collins. He was the overnight janitor, thin shoulders, silver hair, shoes worn smooth from years of walking the same hallways. His cleaning cart squeaked like it had its own heartbeat. People stepped around him without making eye contact. Some didn't even lift their feet when he mopped, they just dragged their shoes through the water as if he were part of the floor. But every night, at exactly 2:15 a.m., he stopped at my desk. 2 paper cups of tea, no matter what. Tea? He'd ask, like it was a ritual. Steam curled between us in the quiet glow of computer monitors. At first we barely spoke. I thought it was just kindness born from routine. Then one night, a call shattered me. A woman's daughter was on the line while doctors tried to save her mother in the emergency room. I stayed with her through every update until the silence on the other end said everything. When the call ended, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I stared at the screen, unable to type the final note. That's when Mr. Collins set the tea beside me. He didn't ask what happened, he just sat quietly and said, "Some days are heavier than others, you don't have to carry them alone." And something inside me broke open. I cried harder than I had since the divorce. After that night, the tea became more than a drink, it became an anchor, proof that someone saw me even when the world rushed past. Weeks later, my car died in the freezing rain after a shift. The parking lot lights flickered, and I sat behind the wheel calculating which bills I could skip if I had to tow it. Then there was a soft knock on my window. Mr. Collins stood there, his jacket too thin for the cold. "I saw you still here," he said. He tried to help, hands turning red as he checked under the hood. When nothing worked, he reached into his wallet and handed me folded bus fare. "I get paid Friday," he said. "You can return it whenever life feels lighter." That sentence stayed with me. Whenever life feels lighter. Years passed. I studied during breaks, took online courses between calls, applied for positions people told me I wasn't ready for. I learned policies, budgets, leadership strategies. Slowly my name began to appear in meetings instead of just on schedules. Call center operator, administrative coordinator, operations manager. With every promotion, I remembered what it felt like to be invisible, so I started small. I learned the names of security guards. I asked nurses what they needed instead of what the spreadsheet said. I created a break room where night shift staff could rest without feeling like they were trespassing. And every morning at 2:15 a.m., even after my role changed, I still made tea, 2 cups, leaving one on the janitorial cart when our schedules no longer overlapped. Because kindness doesn't disappear when you rise, it expands. One morning, during a hospital expansion project, I reviewed a restructuring list, outsourced staff, budget cuts, termination notices. There it was. Collins Edward, janitorial services. My chest tightened. I went downstairs immediately. He was polishing a railing, movements slower than I remembered. "They're letting me go," he said gently, almost apologetically. "It's all right. Happens to people like me, people like me." The words hit harder than anything. I walked straight into the executive office. "My name is Elena Rivera," I said, placing the file on the desk. "And if we can afford a new marble lobby, we can afford the people who hold this place together at night when no one else sees." They argued budgets. I argued humanity. That afternoon the decision changed. Mr. Collins wasn't just retained, he was hired full-time with benefits for the first time in his life. When I told him, he looked confused, almost overwhelmed. "Why would you fight for me?" he asked. I swallowed hard. "Because years ago you gave bus money to a woman who couldn't even afford hope." His eyes filled slowly. "You remembered that?" "I remembered the tea," I said. "I remember being seen, but the story didn't end there. Because what he gave me wasn't just comfort, it was a blueprint." I started a program called 2 Cups. Every department nominated someone who worked quietly behind the scenes: cleaners, transport staff, cafeteria workers, night nurses. Once a month, leadership served tea to them instead of the other way around. Stories were shared, names were spoken out loud, recognition spread, morale changed. People began to look at each other instead of through each other. One night, months later, I walked through the hallway and saw a young receptionist handing tea to a security guard who looked exhausted. She smiled and said, "2 cups, right?" I realized then that kindness had multiplied beyond anything I could control. Mr. Collins became the first official recipient of our Quiet Strength Award. When he walked onto the small stage, staff who had barely noticed him before stood and applauded. His hands trembled as he accepted it. Later he told me, "I never thought anyone knew my name." I handed him 2 cups of tea. "I always did," I said. Because sometimes the smallest gesture, a warm drink at 2:15 in the morning, becomes the beginning of a culture where no one has to feel invisible again. And sometimes the person you think you're helping today becomes the reason an entire system learns how to care tomorrow. What would you have done if you saw someone treated like they were invisible? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like this story if it moved you, and subscribe for more stories like this.